When a government agency launches a fraud investigation or a high-profile audit, the biggest obstacle isn't normally the data itself. Oftentimes, it's the language that the data is wrapped in. Whether it's intercepted messages, financial records in a different language, or even different types of social media evidence. The accuracy of the translation determines the integrity of the entire case. In a high-stakes environment where there's millions and millions or even billions of taxpayer dollars at stake, general translation isn't good enough. You need forensic translation precision. In this video, I'm going to walk through how professional linguistic analysis protects public sector auditors and investigators and ensures that nothing is lost in translation during an audit. Hi everyone, my name is Jason Ellinger and I'm from TaikaTranslations. Taika is a translation, interpretation, human resources, and digital services provider for many government organizations. We hold multiple government contracts, federal, state, local, educative contracts, and we also are on the NASPO ValuePoint contract for remote interpretation and translation, and we're a General Services Administration contract holder. But beyond the provision of standard translation and interpretation services, our company has spent the last 16 years processing some of the most high-stake and high-profile international investigative content in the world, both within the United States and, of course, internationally. We've worked on everything from international oil scandals to complex fraud, waste, and abuse cases, and I'm making this video for procurement officers, investigators, and auditors currently facing the challenge of managing multilingual evidence, and they need to ensure that their process is bulletproof. Today, we're going to cover 4 things. What forensic translation actually is. Number 2, the risk of generic translation in the legal proceedings. Number 3, how to handle hidden digital evidence. And number 4, the non-negotiables of confidentiality in high-profile cases. So to get this started, let's step back for a second and look at the big picture. Why language is a compliance risk. In recent years, we've seen massive increases in fraud investigations across the United States. States ranging from Minnesota in recent days, and Texas and New York, and often the communication being analyzed is communication that's happening in other than English-speaking languages. And what we're seeing is that many auditors and investigators have challenges working through the multilingual content because much of the communication happens in other than the English language in very tight-knit communities where the primary language for communication is something other than the English language. If your agency is auditing a program and you're relying on uncertified or casual translation, you aren't just risking misunderstanding of the content, you're also risking the admissibility of your evidence. At Taika, we look at investigative content through 3 specific lenses. The first is the content analysis and data extraction. It's about identifying patterns in the content. Forensic translation involves searching for key phrases, slang, and cultural nuances that indicate intent or coordination. We help agencies that need to process thousands and thousands of pages of evidence into actionable intelligence. The second is social media and internet research. Modern fraud leaves a digital footprint. We specialize in evidence summarization of social media profiles, private messages, and public mentions. Our role is to provide a neutral third-party analysis of this content so investigators can see the full picture. The third lens falls under strict confidentiality and a chain of custody. Investigative content is sensitive. We follow strict legal procedures and confidentiality processes to ensure that evidence is handled in the same level of security as it would be handled if it was in a police evidence locker. No AI leaks and no unauthorized access. So really quickly, I want to touch on the risk of good enough translation. One question we often get is, can't we just AI or use a standard translator for this? The answer is usually no, not if you want it to stand up in court. General translators often miss the investigative context. They might translate a slang term more literally, missing a crucial piece of the evidence pie. Furthermore, using public access AI for sensitive government documents is a massive data privacy violation. And in this day of age of trying to process more content faster, there is a huge inclination for general translators or unexperienced entities out there in our service industry that are willing to use or employ the use of AI, not even because they're trying to be malicious, simply because they just don't know. And they don't know the dangers of it. At TaikaTranslations, we take many precautions against that to ensure the investigative process is upheld and all of the evidence delivered to the investigators or auditors is admissible in court. Forensic translation provides a certified record. It's a neutral, expert-backed document that auditors and prosecutors can rely on without any fear a conflict of interest. So how do you implement this into your agency? If you are currently overseeing an audit or an investigation, first, what you need to do is check your contract. Do you have a provider authorized for legal investigative work? Under the NASPO contract and General Services Administration contract we hold, Taika is already vetted for these types of services. So the first thing to do is to check the contract. The second thing that you need to do is look for specialized services. Ask for their ability to transcribe interviews, depositions, or cultural consulting. And thirdly, prioritize neutrality. Ensure your language partner has zero connection, and often ensuring that the provider is an out-of-state provider is helpful to the parties being investigated. Many times, the state that's being audited may have a master contract, and some of those entities on the master contract, who are state providers within the state, have close or distant connections to the people or groups being investigated. So that creates a conflict of interest. Choosing an out-of-state provider many times is a better option. So as I wrap this video up today, I want to drive this point home. Integrity in procurement and auditing starts with clarity, and having an experienced partner like TaikaTranslations on board to help you navigate some of those sticky situations. When you can clearly understand the evidence and it is admissible because there's no conflict of interest and it has been processed correctly, you can clearly protect public interests. If your agency is dealing with high-profile cases and needs a partner that understands the weight of investigative content, let's talk.